Customer conflicts can happen frequently, especially in dynamic, busy, and fast-paced consumer-serving businesses. Sometimes customers are going to be angry. It's just the price of doing business for a lot of companies. And dealing with angry customers can lead to elevated stress for customer service agents, and if poorly handled, diminished brand loyalty. There's good news though. You can turn escalated conflicts around. In fact, sometimes a corrective experience for an upset customer can lead to them becoming one of your more loyal patrons. There's a fine line here though, so taking the right steps to resolving conflict is super important. So here's a brief 8-step guide to understanding and implementing conflict resolution for customer service agents. Whether you're a manager tasked with keeping the peace in elevated customer interactions, or one of the many customer-facing team members who face conflict on a regular basis, following these steps can lead to quicker resolutions and better overall customer experiences. Number 1, stay calm. The most professional way to handle an upset customer is to refrain from getting upset yourself. This can be challenging, especially if the customer is highly dysregulated and insults start to become personal. Nonetheless, remaining calm is the best way to meet your frustrated customer where they are without escalating the situation further. But staying calm isn't always easy to do. Here are some tips for remaining calm in these moments. Breathe. It may sound silly, but slowing yourself down to take a few deep breaths can make all the difference in how you respond. Also, take some physical space. If the angry customer is in person and enters your personal space, take a few steps back. You won't be successful in remaining calm if you feel physically threatened or intimidated, so give yourself some room. Also, notice your emotions. Recognize what you're feeling in the moment. You don't necessarily need to act on it, but naming or acknowledging fear, anxiety, frustration, it can all help quell the overwhelm of the emotions so they don't start speaking on your behalf. Finally, call in an alternative. If you're the manager, it's probably your job to de-escalate customers, but if you're able to get a colleague to sub for you temporarily while you collect yourself and calm down a little bit, it could help in the long run. If you do bring someone in, this could be someone who hasn't been trying to manage the conflict since it began. That way they might be just far enough away from the matter so that they don't get overwhelmed by it themselves. Take this opportunity to get a few minutes for yourself, breathe a little bit, calm yourself, and come back with some fresh ideas. Okay, number 2, validate your customer. Whether or not you agree with an agitated customer isn't really important. To de-escalate someone who's ineffectively expressing anger, you'll need to be kind and respectful to them. Tell them you hear what they're saying, even if it doesn't really make sense to you. You can do this very easily by simply repeating or summarizing back what you heard. This helps people feel listened to, even if you haven't solved the problem yet. A lot of times when people get emotionally escalated, they're not really in a place to use reason and logic. They just need to be heard first. Number 3, don't take it personally. One of the quickest ways to escalate a situation further is for you to go into defense mode. But remember, the customer likely doesn't know you personally, so anything they say personally is just their way of defending themselves in that fight or flight mode. This really can't be personal, even though it may sound like they're trying to make it personal. Your task, and it's a tall one, is to stay above it. Number 4, avoid arguing or defending. Despite all of your urges to argue, defend, and prove a customer wrong, resist those urges. Fact-checking emotions is a surefire way to turn a small rupture into an all-out war. There's no arguing against how someone feels. How they feel is how they feel, and it's okay. It doesn't mean you agree with their story or argument. So just wait until they've calmed down a bit and they can use a more rational thinking brain before you start introducing evidence or policies that contradict them. Now be flexible, let go of being right, and work towards a collaborative solution rather than opposing them in order to make a point or prove that they're wrong. All right, number 5, be gentle. Dialectical behavioral therapy has a skill called GIVE, G-I-V-E. It stands for gentle, interested, validate, easy manner. As a skill set used to improve interpersonal effectiveness, GIVE is meant to serve as a reminder that it's not just our words that can make or break an argument, it's really how we deliver those words. It's a simple concept made simpler if you consider how you prefer to be spoken to, especially when you're upset. By being gentle and using an easy manner, you're being mindful of your tone of voice, your body language, and vocabulary. Instead of hurling back curse words at a frustrated customer, for instance, or posturing towards them to assert your authority or using a short or robotic tone, try being more open, friendly, empathetic, kind. Try to mirror their emotions in an appropriate way so they feel you're in this with them rather than looking at and judging them from the outside. Number 6, be assertive. Validating emotions is important and should be one of the first steps in de-escalating an upset customer. But setting some boundaries is also important for your well-being. This means not letting the customer just walk all over you in their rage. You can assert your boundaries as a company representative and as a human being. Note the difference between being assertive and aggressive. You don't have to be intimidating in your boundary setting. You can simply be confident and humble, staying centered in your space. You can also think of this as being kind but firm. You can use compassion as a means to set expectations. Number 7, take responsibility where you can. Whether or not an apology is in order, it's a worthwhile approach to take responsibility for whatever you feel is appropriate. Chances are that the company was responsible for some part of the ordeal, even if it was just poor communication, unclear expectations, or ultimately a problem with the product or service. Apologize where an apology is due, and don't let your pride stand in the way of making amends. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. Think about what you'd like to hear if you were them. After all, we're all customers of some sort to various brands. So what responsibility do you want companies to take when you have a problem with them? Taking responsibility isn't only about owning up to where you or the company may have contributed to the problem, but also how you're going to manage the solution going forward. Let your customer put faith in the fact that you're in this with them, you're there to handle it, or you're gonna at least get the person that can handle it on the line. This way, they won't feel so alone in their problem. And finally, number 8, focus on a solution. Now notice how the solution is actually the last part of this guide. That's because an escalated person, whether it's a customer, a coworker, friend, family member, they need to feel listened to and validated so that they can calm down before they'll be ready to get to a solution. Once they have calmed a bit, it's time to work as collaboratively as possible with a customer to determine the right solution. Solution building should involve the customer as much as possible. So, can you bring them into co-creating the solution? Or if you have a solution in mind, can you present it as a suggestion and ask them if that would work for them? In other words, instead of just simply telling them what you're going to do for them, you ask them their opinion as well. You bring them into the conversation so that they feel that they have some agency or control over the process, which is incredibly important for escalated conflict resolution. Believe it or not, when you navigate a customer conflict effectively, if you stay calm, you validate the customer, take some responsibility, and get them to feel that they've co-developed an agreeable solution, that conflict can be transformed into an amazing opportunity to gain even more customer trust and even longer customer loyalty. If you want to learn more about developing your customer conflict resolution processes to further develop your customer experiences and journey, please get in touch with us at PollackPeacebuilding.com.